Welcome to the RSVP Northern Virginia Podcast, where each week we'll take a look at some of the outstanding volunteer opportunities available to seniors in our area. I'm your host, Rob Payne, an outreach assistant with RSVP. Hi, welcome to the newest RSVP Podcast. We're very thrilled today to be at the headquarters of New Hope Housing in the Route 1 area of Alexandria in Fairfax County, and we're talking with Pam Michell, the Executive Director of New Hope. Welcome to our podcast, Pam.
Thank you.
Pam, you mentioned before we started talking, you've been with New Hope Housing for 27 years.
That's correct.
That's remarkable, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of change in the county, but the one constant that remains is there's still a lot of folks who need support and assistance.
Absolutely.
Tell us about some of the services that New Hope provides.
New Hope's vision is a home and bright future for everyone in this county and in the community in general. And we provide everything with working with homeless men, women, and children, starting with prevention and going all the way through permanent housing. Our biggest, most staff, most funding is in the area of shelter, but our goal with shelter is to move people into housing.
And how many shelters do you have right now?
We have two large shelters, one at Bailey's Crossroads and one on the Route 1 corridor. We have a smaller one also on the Route 1 corridor, and we do hypothermia programs in the Bailey's area on Route 1 and in the City of Falls Church during the winter.
Now, tell me, you guys have staff, you're a nonprofit like all the places that RSVP supplies volunteers with, but you're very reliant on volunteers.
We're very reliant on volunteers for a couple reasons. One is obviously they extend what staff can do, and we can reach more people. But there's another really important thing about volunteers. People who live in our shelters or in our programs know that volunteers come because they want to, as opposed to staff comes because they get a paycheck is some of the mindset sometimes. And so volunteers bring a very special touch to the whole homeless services issue. And one of the big issues for people who are homeless is they feel uncared about, they feel invisible, they feel like society doesn't want to see them. And so having a volunteer here says, no, you are important.
And you touched on this earlier. One of the things that one of your star volunteers, also RSVP volunteer, D. Mackie Smith, and one of the things that I know she's mentioned to us is that not only do you help people get housing, but you really are heavily involved in transitioning them to having a success, getting back on their feet.
Yes.
And you've got some amazing success stories, don't you?
We have some wonderful stories. Yes. If you've been homeless for a period of time, it's not so easy to just suddenly be moved into housing and expect it's all going to be simple. If you've lived in the woods for 1 year, 5 years, some 10, 20, suddenly having a roof over your head may be a little bit scary as well as exciting. And so having people who will support you during that transition, help you with whatever it is, whether it's how to use the garbage disposal, how to pay your rent and get a money order, to cooking, to social activities. It's really important for people to get out and not get isolated in their apartments. So we do a variety of things like that.
That's really good. And the volunteers that come to New Hope, they have one-on-one contact with the client, with your clients,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And then you do have some other folks who do both. Like Dee would be an example. Again, she does work in the office, but at times she's had direct contact. In addition, of course, she's on the board also.
She's the perfect kind of volunteer.
Is she really?
No, all three things.
She is. She definitely is. And she, as we haven't mentioned, she was actually the RSVP Volunteer of the Year with
Correct.
Volunteer Alexandria, and we're really thrilled about that. As far as the availability of a housing for financially challenged folks, employment challenged folks, is that situation getting better or worse, or is it? How has it changed over the last 10 years, 5 years? Where do you see it going?
The big issue with homelessness is that rents continue to rise and income is not rising anywhere near as fast. So yes, somebody can get a job, but their job may well be working at Target and making $10 an hour. If you even multiply that by full time, which may not be what they get, you can't rent anything more than a room. And so if you're a family, it's really impossible without some support. And even for a lot of single adults, it's impossible. And then if you're a single adult who has a disability or a health issue, and you're dependent on the government's Social Security disability income, which is $735 a month, you're really stuck in terms of housing. So there are people who need short-term intervention, both with finding the job, trying to get on what might be a career path that will increase their income, but also some financial subsidy during those first few months of making the transition. And then there are other people, like the people who are making $735 a month, who are going to need long-term supports, both financial and staff supports and volunteer supports, to keep that transition, keep stable in that transition.
That's good. And I guess as this county on one end gets more financially or wealthy, whatever the word you want to use, well, when a lot of this redevelopment takes place, that means less affordable housing. And that's sort of a conundrum, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a big issue on Route 1. We're talking about something called Embark down here, which is bus rapid transit going through the center of the highway, and which means highway expanding, which means the possibility of both, apartments being taken because they need the land, but also because if you're on good transit, that makes you a much more attractive place to live, which makes the rents even higher. And we are one of the places that has among the more affordable rents in Fairfax County. So there is the possibility that we're going to lose housing, and that's one of the big pushes among us advocates, is to make sure that when this great transportation, which we really need, comes, that the housing is not lost and it's not a replacement for housing. We get good transportation, but we can have.
And again, that's a double edged too, because I know I've talked to some other folks down who operate. UCM, for instance, and they said one of the challenges is people who don't have cars. They're almost classified as food deserts because they're not close enough within a mile or whatever the federal standard is. So the transportation will get that, but on the other hand, it makes things more expensive. So it's you guys are always trying to it's like a Rubik's cube.
Transportation is a huge issue for people in poverty or people who are homeless. A, it's expensive, but B, because you tend to not live where jobs are, you spend a lot of time and a lot of money transportation, and then folks are frustrated because we have all this congestion in the metropolitan area, and we need to have more housing where jobs are, and people are not commuting from Prince William County to get to Old Town to do a job, for example.
And then just specifically when an RSVP volunteer, after they hear this and I want to get involved with New Hope, what type of opportunities would they be looking at specifically? I often say we're 24/7, and we have all sorts of different locations and places. But I think the first question for a volunteer is, do they want one-on-one contact with people who are homeless, or do they want to do something as a group? Would they prefer to do behind-the-scenes office kind of work? We have it all. Kitchen is another place that we use volunteers. I think our biggest need is probably in supports for employment. A lot of our guests do not know how to use the computer, how to apply online for jobs, for example. Their resumes need building up, and that's a really good one-on-one kind of situation, because you really get to know the person, but you're also really making a difference. That's good.
If you can help them
to coach
get a
them
job.
on their resumes and things. Oh, that's excellent, and that's something that I think a lot of people could do. You wouldn't need special training necessarily, especially some of our folks at RSVP, because they have the experience. They have the experience. And you guys have been working with RSVP for a while. That's a good relationship.
Yes, it's a wonderful relationship. Yeah. Because what you just said, RSVP volunteers tend to have a lot of experience, so there's some minimal training and more understanding homelessness than about the specific tasks they're doing, and they're reliable.
That's great.
And that's always important.
Yeah, no.
And daytime available.
Yeah, no, and they do have a good range of availability. No, that's a great point. And if someone's interested in learning more about New Hope and the programs, what would you suggest? Where should they go? What was the best source?
You can like us on Facebook.
Okay.
New Hope Housing. But we have a website, newhopehousing.org.
Okay.
And that has a variety of places to look for things we need, volunteers we need, description of our programs, who our board members are, anything you would ever want to know. is there.
Good deal. Great. And you can also contact Carly or Nadia over at RSVP,
Correct.
and we can direct you, or myself, Rob, also we can help you that way. Well, thank you again for taking a few minutes out to talk to us. It's really been a pleasure being here today, and we look forward to working with you and getting more volunteers to help out in the future.
That would be great, and we thank you at RSVP for all what you've done so far.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us today on the RSVP Northern Virginia Podcast. For Carly Hudicki and Nadia Hoonan, this is Rob Payne saying thanks and have a great day. Remember, RSVP Northern Virginia, matching great senior volunteers with great opportunities. For more information, please visit our website at www.rsvpnova.org. Have a great day.